Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. My name is Don. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we get into today's interview, I just wanted to quickly sort of remind everybody, first of all, about my new marketing company. So D3 Digital Marketing, or D-Cube Digital Marketing is what it's called, is the new marketing company. And tonight we are hosting a an event for Music Beats Cancer on David Bowie. David Bowie passed away of liver cancer, and so Music Beats Cancer is hosting a series of these events, just trying to remind people, one, of the importance overall of investing in early startups for cancer therapies, as well as, just having a great time and enjoying David Bowie's music. So please join us if possible. If you want to find out more about the event, the best way to find out more is to go to my LinkedIn page. There's a lot of information there, as well as a link to the event. So with that, I wanted to bring in my guest. In this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Dr. Lisa Faast. Dr. Faast is the CEO of DiversifyRx. Her passion is finding exciting new ways to generate revenue and profit for independent pharmacies. Welcome, Lisa.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to get to do this with you, and I look forward to our conversation about how you help pharmacies and in the ways that you approach it as well. So, really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, this is my favorite topic to talk about, so I will try to I will try not to go on forever and ever because I can get going. But I think pharmacy is such an exciting industry. It's definitely different than a lot of the other industries in healthcare, but we definitely have our own set of issues and problems and opportunities. So excited to dive into them.
Excellent. So, can you tell listeners just a little bit about yourself? What have you done in your career, and what brought you to this point?
Yeah, thank you. I'm getting old these days, so that story gets longer and longer. Sometimes I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump, that I've kind of tried a little bit of everything over my career. But started off as just like a regular pharmacist. I actually wanted to be a nuclear pharmacist. I thought that's what I was going to be when I grew up. That didn't quite work out, and went into the typical retail space. And then I ended up going into entrepreneurship and into independent pharmacy. And that's where I really found my home. I love entrepreneurship. There's something in our DNA. Both me and my brother are very entrepreneurial. And so combining that healthcare with the entrepreneur of business just was the magic spot. And so I opened my first pharmacy in California. We opened for business in 2006. And basically, I've been married to independent pharmacy since then. My husband and I, thankfully, I married somebody else with an entrepreneurial spirit. We've owned and started and sold and closed lots of different businesses over the course of our marriage, and we continue to do so. But pharmacy has always remained a constant there. So I sold that first pharmacy in 2012, and I started on the consulting side of pharmacy. So I don't dispense anymore. I'm not a practicing pharmacist. I really solely focus on the business strategies of independent pharmacy. And so I started this company, DiversifyRx, about almost 2 years ago now. We're getting there. And it was kind of at that point in my life where, I was leaving a job and I didn't really know what I want to do. It's like what I want to be when I grow up. You have that existential crisis at, 40 years old. And I was like, I know what I love and I know what I'm really good at. It's like, why don't I just do that? And so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to monetize this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to start helping pharmacies. And that was really kind of where it all started, and, has led us to here. And, we've got just a lot of awesome things going on, and pharmacy owners need help more than ever before. And so it's just really fun and exciting to be there to help them.
Yeah, I always enjoy these stories to hear how people wound up where they are, because you when you go through school, like early in school, especially as you get towards the end of like high school or whatever, and people are asking you, what are you going to do? What are you going to be? And so many times we don't know. I mean, that there's a path that winds up choosing us, and more than we're selecting the path, and so that's oftentimes what I pick up out of the stories anyway.
That it is. I could have never have planned a path that would have led me to here. I wouldn't have thought that those turns were possible, so and sometimes there's horrible turns and you think like life is over, and I've definitely have been there, just to find out that it's put you in the exact right spot that you needed to be to climb the next mountain. So
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about DiversifyRx. What is the focus of the company?
yeah, so DiversifyRx, we are solely focused on helping those independent pharmacy owners increase their profitability. I mean, ultimately, that's it. Like, their profit is our business. Like I always say, profit is not a four-letter word. And that may seem obvious to a lot of people in business, but with pharmacy owners, most of the time they go into pharmacy ownership not because it's a business venture, not because they want to make money or invest money and sell it in 10 years. They really just go into it because they want to provide good pharmaceutical care for their communities. Profit is almost thought is an afterthought, and you used to could be able to get away with that. You could kind of be a bad business owner and a great pharmacist, and you can still have a successful pharmacy. And that just isn't the case anymore. Like, you have to be a good, savvy business owner, and you also have to provide good pharmacy care. And so really what we're about is bringing that business side to pharmacy owners. Many of them are pharmacists first, and business owners second, or third or fifth. And so what we bring is like those business strategies, helping them to understand marketing and financials and how to hire people and how to fire people and all those skills that you need to run a business that really has nothing to do with pharmacy. Like, I mean, although I know clinical, and we kind of get in clinical, and I can certainly answer questions about compounding and all that other kind of stuff, that's not really where we spend a lot of our time. We spend our time on basically business school for pharmacy owners, and to really help them run their businesses more efficiently. And we named it Diversify because in pharmacy, you cannot be successful with a one-track mind anymore. You have to diversify. You have to do a lot of things in order to be successful. And so it's that diversification of income and your diversification of your focus and all the things that is required now in order to be successful.
Yeah, there's a lot that I sort of relate to in this story because so the most of my consulting business. So I have a marketing company, I have a consulting business. I've a lot of my fingers in a lot of different things. But at the same time, on the consulting side, I mean, primarily what we offer is COO services. So I mean, we primarily focus on, this is how you run the business side of the business. Go run the science side of the business. That's primarily where people focus and have gone to school and things like that. And then, sort of, let the other things that HR, you're dealing with HR, building up accounting, doing all of the things that you have to do to run a quote unquote larger business, are the things that we really sort of focus on providing for a lot of our clients as well. And so I definitely, hear a lot of the same things on the pharmacy side in your business.
Yep. Us science-based people aren't necessarily always the best at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, at the same time, I mean, I sort of the other part that I oftentimes relate to my clients is, you can focus on running the business. I mean, you could go learn this. It's not like you can't. But is that where your time is best spent, or is it on innovating and doing all the things that you do, really to deliver? And that's primarily where they should be focusing, not on the running the business side of things. So
Absolutely. Many years ago, I coined the phrase in pharmacy, work at the top of your license. And, that obviously that came from kind of a clinical perspective, but it also comes from a business strategy perspective. There's are things that only an owner or a primary person can do. And so you need to learn to delegate, and you need to learn how to do that. I mean, I remember the hard lessons I learned of learning to delegate. I remember, delegation does not equal abdication. It's like those are some really tough lessons. And you're right, it can be learned. But most of us don't have the time and energy to do all those things simultaneously when your airplane's already in the air is not the time to learn how to, fly the plane. And so that's where, a lot of these pharmacy owners, they've owned these pharmacies. Many are multi-generational family or multi-generational in the same community. They've been around 70, 80, 100 years. And so now all of a sudden they have to do business completely different than the previous 99% of the existence of the business. And that's a hard pivot to do.
yeah. So tell me more about your customers, and let me just relate maybe a personal story to start. So I grew up in a small town in Northwest Indiana, and we had a very small local pharmacy. And the pharmacist that was there, everybody loved him. He passed away. His son took over the pharmacy, and eventually it winds up sort of going away. And I'm envisioning that this independent pharmacy just could have used you at that point in time, but it was quite a while ago. So yeah, I mean that's kind of my own personal story, but I just would love to know more of like who are your customers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I say independent pharmacy, obviously that term is very familiar to me, but people watching and listening may not quite understand. And so there's the chain pharmacies, the big box stores, the big names, the three letter on the corner kind of thing. Those are corporately owned, corporately managed, and kind of that corporatized structure. And then you flip it all the way over to the independent pharmacy side, where you have that single location, that pharmacist is the pharmacy owner. But there's also some other independents in there. There are some independents that own, four, five, six. There's even some that own 15 and 20 stores, where they're owned by individual people. Usually the pharmacist is like a partner in the business. And so they have some ownership equity and things like that. And there's also some like independent stores and like grocery change and things like that, where the grocery store might be a corporate company, but the pharmacy is actually an independently ran pharmacy that's not really owned by the grocery chain. And so there's kind of a little bit of variety there in that independent, but essentially who I help tends to be more of that smaller pharmacy. The single or double store owner, they maybe live in a small town and they own the three pharmacies in the three towns around there. Something like that is typically who we tend to work with. Usually our focus is more on the retail side. So in the pharmacy space, there's a couple kinds of pharmacies. Most people, when you say pharmacy, it's at retail pharmacy. It's the place that sells the gum and the cold medicine, and you get your medication. But there's also like long-term care pharmacies where people that services like in homes. There's hospital pharmacies. There's other types of pharmacies where we tend to focus on that retail side. Yes, some of them do long-term care, some of them do compounding. Some of them have added on services because they need to diversify in order to be successful. And a lot of times, like you said, you lived in a small town and there was one pharmacy. So that one pharmacy kind of has to provide all of those different services. And that's really kind of what makes it hard these days is, the pharmacy owner is going in all these different directions and they're trying to provide that clinical care and they just don't have the skill set. They weren't taught in pharmacy school, how to look at financial statements or how to hire somebody or things like that, or how to have those tough conversations, all those kinds of things that, a business operations person needs to have. And so that's kind of who we do. The really cool thing to see lately is kind of a surge of new pharmacy startups. So we've got the old guys that have kind of been around. Like I have one of my members, he's like, I've been in the industry for 50 years and, I love learning from you. And then we also have people that are like, I plan on opening a pharmacy next year. I just graduated pharmacy school. And so we have this really diverse age bracket, if you will, that actually makes it really cool because you get all these different perspectives of pharmacy from these different aged pharmacy owners.
Yeah, so the reason why I smiled in the middle of that answer, so we have people saying good morning to us this morning. So I'm not exactly sure where they're from, but Lisa Baker says good morning. Rissa Creasy says good morning, and Mike Vaselli says family. So like family style pharmacies is what
Yep.
he's mentioning as well. So yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's why we're here. And really my mission is, so the pharmacy industry is kind of under attack. I mean, that's the way that we look at it as pharmacy owners. We feel under attack. We feel under attack from the big chains. We feel under attack from PBMs. We feel under attack from regulatory. Like we have all these, big bad people coming at us from all angles. And you're right, lots of independent pharmacies are closing. I mean, hundreds close every year, mostly because they can't make it. They can't financially sustain themselves in order to make it. And when they sell it, they usually try to sell it to somebody else that keep it independent. And obviously that owner becomes very impassioned, but nobody wants to take over a business that you're not really making a profit. it's just hard to do. And so they end up selling to usually a big box store. They buy their files and they go out of business. And then these communities lose that awesome pharmacist. Like that story in the beginning when you talked about that awesome pharmacist. I truly believe that independent pharmacies provide the best patient care. That's just the way that it is. It's when you own your own business, you just have more investment into there and you just treat people different. And so when that local community independent pharmacy disappears, then you just get corporatized medicine, which it can be generic, it can be all the things that come with that. And so I'm on a mission to save independent pharmacies. I want them, if they want to stay in business, they want to be able to pass it on, and they want to stay there and keep that pharmacy open, that's really our mission, is to save independent pharmacy.
Okay. So I'm hearing that it's hard to hear my mic. I'll turn it up and I will move it up.
There you go.
We'll see whether or not if that's better. All right. So the next question I had for you is, what are the 6 pillars of pharmacy profitability? You mentioned that in your bio.
Yeah. So, working with pharmacy owners for as many as I have, who knows how many I've met over the years, probably thousands, and really diving into the business. I'm a data nerd. I'm one of those weird people that love numbers and love to dig into data. And I really, really discovered there's kind of like these 6 pillars that a pharmacy owner really needs to own and grasp and know how to manage. And it's the first ones are the fun ones, the cash-based revenue, which is kind of like the holy grail for pharmacies because they don't have to worry about insurances and all the things that come with that. Non-PBM revenue. So for those listening that are like, what the heck is a PBM? She said that word a couple of times. That's a pharmacy benefit manager. And those are those like $1 trillion corporations that manage the claim in a pharmacy. And we won't get into all the evil things they do. But so it's cash-based revenue, non-PBM revenue, and then PBM optimization. Pharmacies, a lot of pharmacies, more than 90% of their revenue flows through a PBM. And so if you just ignore that and you don't optimize it and you don't try to, work with it, you're missing out on a huge opportunity there. And then the last 3 kind of flip from revenue into more of that management operations that you're probably very familiar with, which is the marketing, the team development, and then KPI optimization. As I said, I'm a data nerd. I've always looked at key performance indicators, the data, as to what do I need to focus on, what's not working and what is working, and let's do more of what is and less of what isn't. And that's really the magic to running a profitable business, is really following that data.
All right, so we're gonna see now if this is much better because so I've made another change. And Scott Smith, thank you so much for sort of telling us that, hey, it's hard to hear. So I appreciate the heads up there. So whenever you work with these pharmacies, do you oftentimes find as well that they struggle with the same points over and over again?
Yes, absolutely. There's when it narrows it down, I can always look. There's 3 things that I look at a pharmacy first. Like I call them 3 critical KPIs. But in almost every pharmacy, they have lots of different stories, and every independent pharmacy is unique. But if they're struggling or they're not as successful as they want to be, it always starts with those first three KPIs, which is your inventory turns. Pharmacy, as everybody knows, pharmaceuticals are expensive. They're not getting cheaper. And so if you have a bloated inventory, that is eating up a lot of your cash. And a lot of pharmacy owners, they don't really understand cash flow, not because they're not smart. It's just they're not business people. They were never really taught that. And so those inventory turns, your expense ratio, the problem with pharmacies and pharmacists, they're nice people. Pharmacists are some of the nicest people you will ever meet on the planet, and they have a hard time saying no. And so their expenses get out of control because when revenue's gone down or they lost a contract or something like that, they don't get rid of people. They don't cut hours. They don't do all those things that normal quote unquote business people would do. They just keep paying people. And so those expenses get out of control really, really quickly, unfortunately. And so usually we can help pharmacies with even just those first 2 of the 3. And but your inventory turns, your expense ratio, and your payroll ratio. So obviously your payroll is part of your expenses, but that's where we have found that a lot of times it's that payroll that gets bloated because they're they're nice and they don't want to cut people's pay, and they keep giving them bonuses and they keep giving them raises and all those kinds of things. And so we teach them how to manage that. It's not just coming in and, suddenly becoming a jerk one day and just firing half your people. It's like, no, here's a strategy. It's a math game. Like, we increase revenue. We do all these other kinds of things. And, this is how you manage it. Because it, when left alone, it just becomes this big, ugly, hairy monster. And so those three things, we can get a lot of, I always say, if you can get those to green, it's really hard not to have a successful pharmacy, because then that becomes your foundation, where all this other stuff that you're working on that doesn't seem to be like contributing much, because it's just, kind of going down the drain in the proverbial bathtub. Once you fix those three things, then it's like, wow, we're actually making progress. We're actually moving forward. And really magical things start to happen in pharmacy business then.
Excellent. Well, so, and Mike says it's so true as well. I don't know if you could see that on the screen, but, Mike is just really resonating with what you're saying as well. So the other question I have for you is, what is the biggest challenge that you face with DiversifyRx?
I think it's earning the trust of pharmacy owners. So pharmacy owners have frankly been screwed over a lot. They've been screwed over by companies. They've been screwed over by quote unquote consultants and gurus and coaching and consulting, because they're hurting. And, they've reached out for help, and, somebody pretended to be somebody that, they weren't, and they didn't really have the credentials that they did. And it's kind of like they kind of give up. They kind of like, well, I guess I'm not going to reach out for help. And they cocoon themselves. And so really, I think the biggest barrier we have is reaching those independent pharmacy owners. There's only about 17,000 pharmacy owners in the entire country that own about 22,000 pharmacies. And many of them have just like, well, I guess it's my life. I'm just going to keep my head down and keep working, and I'll scrape by. And they don't really come up for air. They don't like, hey, look around and, let me help. And that's part of the reasons why we give away so much free resources. Like, I'm a big believer. I'm here to save the industry. I can't do that if I have to talk to everybody. So we give away a ton of resources. We try to put a lot of information out there just to try to reach those people and let them know that we're legit, like we know what we're talking about. I mean, I'm a pharmacy owner now. I own pharmacies now. And, we try to employ people who have that kind of experience as well. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just reaching those people and getting them to have just a little bit of hope that somebody could help them again, because they've been burned. And that's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, being a business owner, right? I mean, you constantly are bombarded with people, telling you that they've figured out the magic recipe for everything. And then on the other side, I mean, it's funny because I've sort of had, lunches with other consultants, and I just said, I had no idea becoming a consultant that you would have to have so many, not just so many proof points, but also just provide so much value ahead of time, ahead of, doing any sort of, real work for a client, just because they really want to understand, can you really do what you say that you do, or are you just talking about it?
Yep. And unfortunately, there's, with the pandemic, there's been a big exodus, obviously, of people. A lot of people are going into consulting and quote unquote gig work and those kinds of things, which is awesome on the one hand. Like, I love people going into entrepreneurship. And it also kind of makes it hard to decipher, because you can put anything you want on a web page. You can put anything you want on, a flyer or something. And, in our industry, it's a small industry. And I've been in this industry for over 20 years now. And, a couple of months ago, there was a post in a big pharmacy owner Facebook group about this guy. And he was talking about all this experience that he had and how he's helped pharmacies and, has been doing this for years. And I remember looking at my husband, I'm like, there's no way I would have known him. Like, we all know each other. Like, we're all like, we're not 6 degrees separation. We're all like 2 degrees of separation. And I'm like, this guy is totally blowing smoke. And I feel so bad for people out there, because he honestly, and those posts lasted for a couple of months, and now they've completely disappeared, because I think he got eaten alive, kind of thing. And we're a unique industry in a little bit of that is that we're tight knit for those that are kind of active and have their heads up. Everybody knows everybody. There's hardly anybody that, that goes all to the same trade shows and, all that kind of stuff. It kind of becomes a little bit of an extended family, but I think that's the biggest part is, and then we get consultants from other businesses, other industries, which normally works. Like if you consult for, a brick and mortar auto repair shop on marketing, you could probably do the same thing for a hair salon. Like brick and mortar marketing is kind of, the same. But when you cross into the pharmacy space and pharmacy business, we have just a unique model. Not only is it healthcare, like you layer that healthcare stuff on top, but we just have a unique model where our competition also sets the prices of our drugs, also can audit us. Like it's like this really weird business that nobody would ever like create on their own. And we're just have unique issues that if you're not from the pharmacy space, you try to come in and you try to help people and you quickly find yourself lost. And because it's like backwards world, it's like things don't quite work the same as they do in pharmacy.
Well, the supply chain alone, I mean, just completely throws me off. I mean, whenever you've got sort of these, you've got the pharmaceutical manufacturers, but then you constantly have intermediaries, and those intermediaries are where you consolidate everything and sort of have to buy from as well. So it's not something that I understand at all and would probably never delve into just because it's too confusing for me. I'm a simple-minded guy.
Yep. And I love it. For whatever reason, God put me on this planet. And like I said, I found that like perfect match of like entrepreneurship and this pharmacy, healthcare. And I love that craziness. And for some reason, I just get it. And so that's why like this is fun. Like I love waking up every day. Like what pharmacy owner problem am I going to solve today? Like that's kind of like what we look forward to. And so I think you have to be a little nuts to be like that, which is okay. I'm comfortable in that. But it's definitely, it makes, I always say there's never a dull day in pharmacy. There's always something. There's some new law, some new audit. Like seriously, our industry never stays the same from day to day.
Excellent. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for DiversifyRx?
Man, that's a good one. To me, it's just continued expansion. And I'm not one of those people. It's like, I want a $10 million company or this and that. I actually just look forward to becoming known by more pharmacy owners because I can't help them if they don't know about me. And I always say, consume my free content. Please start there. Yes, we have a membership. Yes, we do live events and live conferences. We have one coming up in less than a month in Orlando. But go do the free stuff. Like just consume the free stuff. And chances are that's going to be able to help you a whole lot. And then if you want some more help, like, feel free to reach out. But I think the biggest opportunity is there's still so many pharmacy owners that need some help. That we have a pharmacy profit roadmap, and we have the very first part is quick wins, like some of these quick things. So when I buy a pharmacy, it's pretty much like my checklist that I kind of go through to like quickly optimize that pharmacy and squeeze out a little bit more profitability. And it's like, if we can just get more people exposed to that, I think that there's a big opportunity. And my opportunity comes from the opportunities that are available to pharmacy owners. And, some of the outcomes of the pandemic are the public perception of health and wellness, and even their perception of pharmacists have shifted through the pandemic. I think there's big opportunities for pharmacies to really tap into that cash-based revenue and non-PBM revenue, because consumers want to take control of their health. They want to help make themselves healthier and better. And really, pharmacists are the perfect educated professional to do that, because we understand, in our education, a lot of people don't know, but we get a lot of the body education, obviously, that doctors get, but we also get more pharmacology. Doctors get 1 semester or maybe 2 semesters of pharmacology. We get years, like every single year, there's years of pharmacology, so we understand that side of it. And we're accessible. There's pharmacies in even the smallest of towns, there's a pharmacy. And so it's like, no matter what. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for pharmacy. I love to say it's never been tougher before, because it is tough. And there's even big storms coming. We have huge changes coming in 2024 for pharmacies. It is going to be tough. The storm is coming. And at the exact same time, there's never been more opportunity for pharmacy owners that are willing to change. You can't keep doing it the same old way, and change is hard. But if you're willing to change, there's a ton of opportunity out there. I
find it really interesting because I've sort of I've been getting some professional coaching as well. And in there, we oftentimes, talk about when is winter coming. And it's not necessarily like winter right now, but, when is business winter coming, and
Yep.
are you prepared for when that winter comes is so important as a business leader of any type. And then, to know as well that, sort of the market dynamics are just going to sort of constrain you even further is an even bigger challenge because winter could be a long time then. So, yeah,
It
just
very much can be.
very,
And right now in independent pharmacy, our winter is January 1st, 2024. There's big changes happening in the way that we're paid for like our Medicare patients that are going to it's going to strangle cash flow for the first probably 4 to 5 months of 2024. I've called it the 2024 DIR fee apocalypse. That's kind of what I have labeled it as. And it's because I'm really fearful that a lot of pharmacies aren't going to make it because they're not profitable enough now and they don't understand how to manage cash flow well enough in order to save up the cash that they need in order to get through that storm. And so that's the big message that we're preaching from the mountaintops right now to every pharmacy owner, because it's amazing. So many of them are just heads down, doing their work, going to their kids' soccer games, doing their community service, that they sometimes just don't pay attention to the industry stuff because frankly, a lot of it's very negative and they just kind of like block it out. And so I still meet pharmacy owners, even though we've been talking about this for 5 months already. I still meet pharmacy owners every week that have no idea of these changes that are coming up. And I'm really fearful that a lot of pharmacy owners aren't going to make it through that time. They're going to literally run out of cash, not be able to pay employees, not be able to pay wholesalers as this transition to how pharmacies are paid goes into effect.
wow. Well, Lisa, there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. So what excites you?
My kids. Like I live for my kids. So on the personal level, my kids, I could sit back and just watch them all day, every day. And they're just the funnest little human beings. So I got 4 kids. Amazing. Like I could have a crappy day. I could, whatever. And I love my kids fiercely. On the professional side, I mean, I get excited. I just talk about, I love helping pharmacy owners. And when I talk to one and they just say, thank you, like, that dopamine hit is just amazing.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. And what concerns you?
That the big guys are going to win. The ones with the trillions of dollars are going to get their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that definitely could happen. And there also could be I don't know, just people could say, hey, look, I like the personalized service as well of an independent pharmacy.
There's definitely a shift. I mean, you might have even seen, some of these stories are starting to hit mainstream, which is kind of exciting. It's sad that they're happening, but it's exciting that they're hitting mainstream, where you hear about, a PBM pilfering a Medicaid system, an extra $20 million a year, they made in profits while they underpaid 80% of the pharmacy claims, and things like this. Like, it's starting to become mainstream, but in Washington, money talks, and they certainly have a whole lot more money than even all the independents combined. So
for sure. And what inspires you?
Man, people who have just unwavering perseverance. Some of these pharmacy owners, that they're the 4th generation of owning a pharmacy, and they are literally borrowing from their house to keep their pharmacy in. And when I talk to them, like, I just get goosebumps, and it's like that gives me the motivation to kind of like just keep going. Like, they're so inspiring. I'm lucky that I get to talk to these kind of people, and I get to work with them and help them. And many times I can just give them a couple of tips, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, that might change everything, which is fantastic. But it's tough. I would say being a pharmacy owner is probably one of the toughest things that somebody could decide to do. And the fact that there's still so many people out there deciding to do that and do that tough work is awesome. So I'm just inspired by the pharmacy owners. It really is. So
excellent. So Lisa, where would people go to find out more information about you and about DiversifyRx?
Yeah, DiversifyRx.com. is our website. You can gain access to all of our free resources. So if you're a pharmacy owner, you work in an independent pharmacy, you have anything to do with independent pharmacy, we have a ton of free resources out there. We have our own podcast and YouTube and all those kinds of things. So go consume that information. Go use that free information to make your pharmacy better. And that's the best place to start. So just go to the website, DiversifyRx.com. And then I'm on social media, Facebook and all. If you message me on Instagram, I probably won't get back to you for a few weeks because I'm not very good on that. But Facebook and LinkedIn, I respond immediately right away. So.
Well, Dr. Lisa Faast, thank you so much for being with me today and being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciated our conversation.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot.